2. Self-improvement. In 2025, the micro-habit revolution. Segment 1. The rise of micro-habits in 2025. 2025 is not a year of big changes, it is the year of small ones, quiet ones, invisible ones, the kind of changes that people ignore at first because they look too small to matter, but that is exactly why they are powerful. Because the future is no longer shaped by huge decisions made once in a while. It is shaped by micro-habits repeated every day. To understand the micro-habit revolution, you must first understand why big goals fail. Most people begin their year saying they will transform everything. They will wake up at 5 a.m., they will go to the gym every day, they will read 10 books a month, they will completely reinvent their routine. But human nature does not work like that. The mind resists massive change. It rejects overwhelming shifts. When you try to force yourself into a completely new identity overnight, your old patterns fight back hard. That is why 90% of New Year resolutions die before February arrives. Not because people are weak, but because their system is wrong. Micro habits fix this. A micro habit is a habit so small that your mind does not resist it, it is almost impossible to fail. Reading 2 pages, drinking 1 glass of water after waking up, stretching for 60 seconds, writing 1 sentence in a journal, meditating for 1 minute. These actions seem tiny, too tiny to matter. But that is the trick. The mind accepts them easily because they do not feel threatening, and once accepted, these small habits start building a new identity quietly. 2025 is the year where people are realizing that identity changes first in microscopic steps, not in dramatic leaps. If you want to become a reader, you do not start with an hour daily. You start with 2 minutes. If you want to become fit, you do not start with heavy workouts. You start with a walk around your building. If you want to quit procrastination, you do not force yourself into 10-hour work days. You simply work for 2 minutes. Because 2 minutes is not hard. 2 minutes bypasses your internal resistance. And here is the magic. Once you begin, you almost always continue longer than you planned. A micro habit is not about efficiency. It is about psychology. It is about creating momentum, and momentum is the strongest force in self-improvement. In 2025, attention spans are shorter, distractions are louder, and digital noise is everywhere. People do not fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they cannot maintain focus long enough to build big habits. That is why micro habits are becoming the new foundation of transformation. They fit into busy schedules. They survive low energy days. They work even when life becomes chaotic. Micro habits do not demand perfection. They demand consistency. And consistency builds identity. Let us talk about identity because that is where true transformation begins. You do not change your life by forcing yourself into success. You change your life by becoming the kind of person who naturally does the things that lead to success. And that identity shift begins with tiny repeated actions. Every time you read 2 pages, you vote for the identity of a reader. Every time you walk for 5 minutes, you vote for the identity of a healthy person. Every time you write 1 line, you vote for the identity of a writer. Every time you avoid the snooze button once, you vote for the identity of a disciplined person. In 2025, the world is learning that transformation is not about intensity. It is about accumulation. Small actions repeated daily become unstoppable. Even technology is pushing people toward micro improvement. Short videos, micro learning apps, habit trackers, 2-minute challenges, bite sized educational content. Everything is optimized for small, repeatable steps. People used to chase big moments. Now they chase small wins because small wins create emotional rewards. They build confidence. They build competence. They create proof that you can trust yourself. And once you trust yourself, bigger habits become easier. Micro habits are the gateway. They prepare you for a larger identity shift. Think about the strongest people you know, the most disciplined, the most successful, the most consistent. None of them rely on motivation. None of them rely on luck. They rely on systems. And every big system is built from tiny, invisible routines, from micro habits. This revolution is not loud. It does not make noise. It does not get applause, but it changes your life quietly behind the scenes. You do not need huge discipline to begin. You only need a small step, one step that your mind will not resist, one step so easy that you cannot say no, one step that begins to rewrite the story of who you are. Before this segment ends, understand this clearly. Your life will not change because you plan big changes. Your life will change because you repeat small improvements over and over. Without stopping, 2025 is the year of micro habits because this is the year we finally understand a simple truth. Small is not weak, small is powerful, small is sustainable, small is the beginning of every great transformation. This is how futures are built now, one micro habit at a time. Segment 2: Why big change fails and small change wins. In 2025, people are realizing a truth that feels simple but is extremely powerful. Big change looks exciting, but small change actually works. For years, motivational videos, books, and speakers told you to transform your entire life overnight. Wake up early, train hard, work all day, read a book every week, start a new routine immediately. These ideas sound inspiring, but they collapse the moment real life hits. Because real life is not a movie. Real life has stress. Real life has responsibilities. Real life has fatigue, distraction, emotion, and pressure. When you try to perform huge changes suddenly, your brain reacts with resistance. The mind sees massive effort and automatically prepares to escape it. This is human psychology. We avoid discomfort by default. You can force yourself for one day, maybe two, but by day 5, the motivation fades, the excitement wears off, and you return to your old routine, not because you are weak, but because your habits were too big to sustain. This is why the world is shifting to micro habits. They do not fight your psychology, they work with it, they slip past resistance. Micro habits give you change that does not trigger fear, panic, or burnout. Let us break down the science behind it. Your brain is designed to save energy. It prefers familiar actions, familiar routines, and familiar patterns. When you introduce a small habit, your brain accepts it because it does not feel like a threat. It barely requires energy. You can do it even on a bad day. That is why micro habits survive long enough to grow. A micro habit is like planting a seed. You do not expect a tree tomorrow, you expect a beginning, something small but alive. When you water it consistently, it grows, without force, without pressure, without breaking you. Micro habits follow the same rule. Small actions turn into consistency. Consistency turns into identity. Identity turns into transformation. Let us look at an example for English learners. If you try to study English for 1 hour daily, you may succeed for a few days. but one stressful day is enough to break the routine. On the other hand, if you make a micro habit of learning one new English word per day or speaking for 1 minute daily, you can continue that even on your busiest days. And over a year, that 1 minute turns into hours of progress. Micro habits remove guilt. They remove pressure. They remove the all or nothing mindset. They prove that you can move forward even when life is not perfect. Another reason micro habits win is because they make failure almost impossible. When the task is small, your chances of completing it are extremely high. And when you complete a task, you create a psychological reward. Your brain feels successful. That success builds confidence, and that confidence makes you want to continue. This emotional reward is important because it keeps your motivation alive naturally. You stop depending on hype, you stop depending on excitement, you begin depending on momentum. Even athletes, performers, and top achievers in 2025 are using micro habits. They know that big goals require long-term consistency, not short-term intensity. When Cristiano Ronaldo trains, he does not think about becoming the best ever. He thinks about the next repetition, the next stretch, the next small improvement. When people hear self-improvement, they imagine dramatic changes. But actual growth is subtle, almost invisible. It feels too small to matter until one day everything looks different. You become healthier not by running a marathon, but by walking 10 minutes daily. You become confident not by making big speeches, but by speaking a little more each day. You become focused not by working 10 hours straight, but by removing one daily distraction. You become disciplined not by forcing huge routines, but by avoiding small bad habits. Your life changes in small portions, not in giant leaps. Micro habits are also perfect for the modern world because attention spans are shrinking. People are overstimulated, notifications, screens, social media, constant noise. It is harder than ever to stay focused for long periods. But micro habits do not require long focus. They require short moments, done repeatedly. Another benefit of micro habits is flexibility. You can adjust them. If you start with 2 pages of reading per day, you can expand to 5, then 10, then 20. The habit grows with you, it adapts. It becomes stronger as your identity shifts. Micro habits are the foundation. Bigger habits grow on top of them only when you are ready. But never forget this. Small does not mean weak. Small means sustainable. Small means realistic. Small means long-lasting. Anyone can try something big. Only a disciplined mind can stay consistent with something small. Before this segment ends, understand one powerful truth. Your future will not change because you do something big once. Your future will change because you do something small every day without breaking the chain. 2025 is not the year of huge goals. It is the year of tiny decisions repeated with purpose. It is the year of micro habits, building macro futures. And your transformation begins the moment you choose one small action, one small step, one small change that your mind will accept without resistance. Segment 3. Identity change. The real goal of micro habits, most people misunderstand self-improvement. They think the goal is to change actions, but the truth is deeper. Real transformation begins when you change your identity, not just your behavior. And in 2025, this idea is at the center of the micro habit revolution. People are finally understanding that you do not become disciplined by forcing discipline. You become disciplined by proving to yourself that you are the kind of person who acts with discipline even in the smallest ways. Identity is not created by one big achievement. It is created by thousands of micro actions. Every small habit is a vote for who you want to become. You are always voting, every day, every choice, every repetition, and these votes slowly build the person you believe yourself to be. This is the part most people overlook. When you start a giant habit like going to the gym for 2 hours a day, you're not building identity, you're building pressure. You're trying to jump into a personality that is not developed yet. That is why big habits fail. Your actions do not match your self image. You're telling your mind, I'm a disciplined person, but your mind does not believe it yet because there is no evidence. Identity needs proof. Proof comes from small successes, not big promises. When you commit to a micro habit, the proof starts building fast. Reading one page a day proves that you are the kind of person who reads. Writing one line a day proves that you are the kind of person who writes. Meditating for 1 minute proves that you are the kind of person who reflects. Speaking a little English every day proves that you are the kind of person who is improving. Identity does not care about the size of your actions, it cares about the consistency of your actions. That is why micro habits create stronger identity change than big habits. They provide daily evidence that you are becoming a new version of yourself. And when your identity shifts, your behavior follows automatically. Think of a smoker trying to quit. If he says, I'm trying to stop smoking, his identity is still tied to the habit. But if he says, I do not smoke, even if he only avoided it for one day, his identity begins shifting. The micro action is not the victory, the identity claim is. Now imagine applying this to your life in 2025. If you want to be focused, start with one tiny focus habit. If you want to be confident, start with one tiny confidence habit. If you want to be disciplined, start with one tiny discipline habit. If you want to be fluent in English, start with one tiny speaking habit. These are not actions. These are identity signals. They tell your brain, this is who I am becoming. The micro habit revolution is not about efficiency. It is about identity architecture. You are redesigning your inner world using small, consistent inputs. Another powerful aspect of micro habits is the way they bypass self doubt. When the action is small, your mind does not resist. You may doubt your ability to read for an hour, but you cannot doubt your ability to read half a page. You may doubt your ability to meditate for 20 minutes, but you cannot doubt your ability to sit still for 20 seconds. This is why micro habits work so well for English learners too. Many learners feel fear, hesitation, embarrassment, or lack of confidence. Speaking for 30 minutes may feel scary, but speaking one sentence daily is not, and that small act gives confidence. Confidence gives momentum. Momentum gives fluency. People think they need motivation before starting, but micro habits flip the formula. You take action first, motivation comes second. When you succeed at a small task, your brain releases a reward. You feel good, you feel capable. That emotional reward makes you want to do more. This cycle is simple but powerful. Small habit, small success. Small confidence, small improvement, small momentum, small identity shift, then big transformation. This is how people truly change. In 2025, the world is fast, distracting, and overwhelming. That is why micro habits are perfect. They cut through the chaos. They simplify growth. They give you progress that your mind can handle without stress. There is another truth you must understand. Identity grows slowly at first. Then suddenly, for weeks, you may feel like nothing is changing, but your identity is building beneath the surface. One day you wake up with a new level of clarity, a new level of confidence, a new feeling that you can trust yourself, that you can depend on yourself, that you can handle what life gives you. The greatest gift micro habits give you is self respect. When you keep a promise to yourself daily, even a small one, your self respect grows. And self respect is the root of discipline. People think discipline is about forcing yourself, but discipline is about trusting yourself. You do not force a disciplined person to act. They act because their identity makes the decision for them. They have built a personality where action is natural, not difficult. This is the real revolution of 2025. People are no longer chasing motivation. They are building micro identities, identities made from easy actions repeated with intention, identities built from the smallest evidence possible. Before we end this segment, remember this. Every big change in your life will grow from something small. Every version of yourself begins as a micro version. Every identity shift begins with a micro habit. You do not need to change everything today. You need to change something small and change it consistently. Your future self is being built quietly in the moments no one sees, in the habits no one notices, in the choices no one celebrates. That is the revolution. Quiet improvement, invisible progress, massive identity change. 1. Tiny step at a time. Segment 4. Micro habits versus motivation. Why discipline is becoming simpler. In the past, people believed motivation was everything. If you felt inspired, you could do anything. If you felt determined, you could achieve any goal. But in 2025, people are finally realizing the truth. Motivation is unreliable, it is unstable, it is emotional, it disappears when life becomes difficult, it vanishes when you feel tired, stressed, or distracted. Micro habits do not depend on motivation. They survive even when your mood fails. They survive on bad days. They survive when you have no energy. They survive when your mind is not fully present. That is why micro habits are becoming the most powerful discipline tool in the modern world. Let us understand why. Motivation is a feeling, discipline is a decision. Micro habits make discipline easier to choose. When you set a giant goal, your mind feels fear. Fear leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to guilt. Guilt leads to quitting. But when your goal is small, your mind cooperates. A small task feels safe. It feels possible. It feels manageable. That psychological shift is the foundation of modern self-improvement. For example, imagine you want to improve your English speaking. If you try to speak for 30 minutes every day, you will need motivation. But if your micro habit is speaking one simple sentence daily, you do not need motivation. You need less than 10 seconds. Even the busiest person can do that. And once you complete it, you often end up doing more. Micro habits turn discipline from something heavy into something light. This is the secret behind their power. Another reason micro habits work so well in 2025 is because the digital world is full of distractions. Notifications steal your attention. Short videos pull you in for hours. Social media fragments your focus. Long tasks feel impossible, but tiny tasks feel achievable. When the world becomes overwhelming, small actions become the only sustainable way to grow. People are no longer asking, how can I find motivation? They are asking, how can I lower resistance so I can stay consistent. This is a massive shift in mindset. It is not about becoming more intense, it is about becoming more strategic. In previous years, self improvement focused on discipline that looked dramatic: waking up before sunrise, ice baths, long workouts, radical change, but most people could not maintain that lifestyle. They burned out. They felt defeated. They returned to old habits and blamed themselves. They thought something was wrong with them. In truth, nothing was wrong with them. Their system was wrong. The human brain prefers small steps and hates sudden change. Micro habits respect this biology. They turn growth into something comfortable, something natural, something gradual. Instead of fighting your mind, micro habits guide it. This is especially important for English learners and young adults. Their days are filled with school, work, stress, and social pressure. There is no space for giant habits, but there is always space for small ones. And those small habits build long term skill and confidence. Let us explore another powerful aspect of micro habits. They create what psychologists call low friction behavior, meaning the action requires almost no effort to begin. Starting is the hardest part of any habit, not the doing, the starting. Micro habits remove the hardest part. When the beginning becomes easy, the rest follows naturally. Once you start reading one paragraph, you often read more. Once you start writing one sentence, you often write more. Once you start exercising for 1 minute, you often continue longer. Once you start speaking one English line, you often speak another. Micro habits open the door, momentum walks you through it. Another reason micro habits win over motivation is because they prevent the failure spiral. Most people fail a big habit once and feel defeated. If you miss one gym day, your mind says, "See, you cannot stick to anything." Micro habits make failure small. If you forget a tiny habit, you simply do it the next day. You do not feel like a failure. You do not feel discouraged. You simply continue. There is no drama. There is no guilt. There is no heavy emotion. This protects your long-term consistency. In 2025, self-improvement is becoming less emotional and more practical. People are no longer waiting for a magical moment of inspiration. They are building systems that work even when inspiration is absent. There is one more truth. Motivation tries to change your mood. Micro habits try to change your identity. When your identity changes, you no longer need motivation. A healthy person does not need motivation to avoid junk food. A disciplined person does not need motivation to wake up early. A confident English speaker does not need motivation to practice. Their identity guides their behavior. This identity begins with micro habits. Identity grows from repetition. Before this segment ends, understand this clarity. You do not need a powerful start. You need a sustainable system. You do not need high motivation. You need low resistance. You do not need to transform overnight. You need tiny habits that reshape your identity over time. 2025 is the year people stop chasing short bursts of motivation and start embracing small, repeatable behaviors that truly create change. Your future does not depend on how motivated you feel tomorrow. It depends on the micro habit you repeat today. Segment 5. Small habits, big results, the science of accumulation. There is a rule in self-improvement that becomes clearer every year. Small habits do not stay small. They grow, they compound, and they rewrite your future silently. In 2025, this rule has become more important than ever because the world is faster, more competitive, and more stressful. People who try to make big changes collapse under pressure. People who commit to small habits rise slowly but steadily. To understand why micro habits create big results, you must understand the science behind accumulation. Imagine a glass of water placed under a slow dripping tap. One drop means nothing, 10 drops mean nothing, but leave the glass under the tap long enough and eventually it fills. Not because the drops were powerful, but because they were consistent. This is exactly how micro habits transform your life. One vocabulary word a day becomes 365 words in a year. One page of reading daily becomes 30 books across time. 1 minute of meditation becomes mental clarity. One small exercise becomes a healthier body. One focused task becomes productivity. One confident English sentence becomes fluency. Small habits create invisible progress. You will not see the change instantly. You will not feel powerful on day one. You may even doubt whether it is working, but your future sees it, your identity feels it, your mind absorbs it, your body adapts to it. Small steps always move you towards something bigger. The human brain loves repetition. The more often you repeat an action, the easier it becomes. Less friction, less hesitation, less struggle. This is called automaticity. It is the process of turning a conscious behavior into a subconscious one. When a habit becomes automatic, it no longer feels like effort, it becomes your nature. Micro habits reach automaticity faster because they are lighter, easier, and less stressful. A tiny action repeated daily becomes a mental shortcut. Your brain stops negotiating with you, it simply executes. That is the secret behind long term success. Let us look at English improvement as an example. If you practice speaking for 1 minute per day, your brain begins to form a pattern. You eliminate fear. You reduce hesitation. English stops feeling like a separate activity. It becomes part of your identity. Over months, your confidence grows. Your fluency improves, not because you had long sessions, but because you had consistent sessions. People overestimate intensity and underestimate repetition. Intensity creates excitement, but repetition creates mastery. Micro habits also influence your emotional state. Every time you complete a tiny task, your brain releases a small amount of satisfaction. This feeling builds motivation naturally. You feel capable, you feel proud, you feel like you are making progress even if the step was small. This emotional reinforcement keeps you moving, it keeps you committed, it keeps you consistent. The opposite is also true. Large habits often create emotional failure. When you cannot maintain them, you feel disappointed in yourself. This disappointment makes you quit. Micro habits protect you from this emotional crash because the goal is always small enough to complete. There is another important truth. Micro habits teach you patience. We live in a world obsessed with quick results. People want fast success, fast money, fast skills, fast transformation. But meaningful change does not happen quickly. It happens gradually, slowly, quietly. Micro habits force you to appreciate slow growth. They teach you to trust the process even when the results are invisible. This patience becomes a superpower. Because most people quit too early. They stop before the compounding kicks in. They stop before the invisible progress becomes visible. But if you can remain consistent with tiny habits, you will outlast everyone who tried to sprint toward their goals. Another benefit of micro habits is adaptability. You can maintain them even in chaos. When life becomes difficult, big habits collapse. But micro habits survive. If you lose time, you can still do the small version. If you feel tired, you can still do the small version. If you struggle, you can still do the small version. Micro habits make self improvement available every day, not just on the perfect days. This is how people in 2025 are beating overwhelm. They are not trying to perform at level 100 every day. They are trying to improve by 1%. That 1% feels small, but it multiplies, it grows, it stacks on top of itself. And then one day, everything looks different. Your body feels lighter, your mind feels sharper, your confidence feels stronger, your English feels more fluent, your discipline feels more natural, your identity feels more aligned with your goals. But the transformation did not come from a miracle. It came from the smallest decisions repeated consistently. Before this segment ends, remember this simple formula that defines the micro habit revolution. Small effort, X daily repetition, X time, massive change. If you miss the small effort, nothing happens. If you miss the daily repetition, nothing happens. If you miss the time, nothing happens. But when all three combine, your future shifts. Do not chase giant progress. Chase tiny improvements that never stop. Because the future belongs to those who master the small things. Segment 6. Designing your future. Through systems, not willpower, in 2025, people are finally learning a powerful truth. Your future does not depend on your willpower. Willpower is temporary. It rises and falls with your emotions, your energy, your stress, and your environment. You cannot build a strong life on something that fluctuates every day. But you can build a strong life on systems. Systems are stable, systems are repeatable, systems are predictable. Micro habits are the foundation of those systems. Willpower tries to change your mood, systems change your life. Let us understand this difference deeply. When you rely on willpower, you are constantly negotiating with yourself. Every day becomes a battle between what you feel like doing and what you need to do. Some days you win, some days you lose, and when motivation fades, willpower often collapses with it. But when you rely on systems, the decision is already made. You do not use energy deciding whether to do the habit. The habit is built into your day. It is small, it is simple, it fits your lifestyle. That is why micro habits create systems so naturally. Let us take an example. If you want to read more, telling yourself, I will read 1 hour daily is willpower. Placing a book next to your bed and reading one page every night is a system. If you want to learn English, telling yourself, I will practice for 30 minutes is willpower. Saying one English sentence aloud every morning is a system. If you want to get fit, forcing yourself to run 5 kilometers is willpower. Doing 5 push-ups daily is a system. Willpower is emotional. Systems are logical. Willpower is big and tiring. Systems are small and manageable. Willpower drains you. Systems carry you. This is why micro habits are reshaping how people grow in 2025. The world is busy, attention is fragmented, stress is high. Most people do not have the energy to maintain large habits every day, but they can maintain small ones. And those small habits, repeated long enough, create a powerful identity shift. The magic of a micro habit system is that it removes decision fatigue. Decision fatigue happens when your brain becomes tired from making too many choices. In the modern world, choice overload is everywhere. What to eat, what to watch, what to study, what to respond to, what to ignore. Your brain gets exhausted before you even begin working on yourself. Micro habits eliminate that problem. You do not choose. You simply follow the system. Another reason systems work is because they create consistency without pressure. Big goals often create guilt because you feel behind, but micro systems do the opposite. They make you feel ahead because the task is always small enough to complete even on the worst day. This builds self trust. Self trust becomes discipline. Discipline becomes identity. Think about English learning again. If your system is to learn 5 new words daily, the habit is always achievable. Even if you're tired, stressed, or busy, 5 words are possible. And because you complete the habit easily, your mind begins to accept the identity of someone who is improving daily. That identity leads to more confidence and bigger improvements. Systems create a long chain of small wins. That chain becomes momentum. Momentum is stronger than motivation and more powerful than willpower. Another important part of systems is environment design. Your environment shapes your habits more than you realize. If your phone is the first thing you see in the morning, you will scroll. But if your notebook is the first thing you see, you will write. If a dumbbell is near your desk, you will lift it. If a book is on your pillow, you will read. Micro habits become easier when your environment supports them. In 2025, people are no longer trying to fight distractions. They are designing their environment to reduce them. A good system removes friction. A bad system creates friction. Micro habits remove friction by making growth effortless. A healthy person is not someone with superhuman willpower. A healthy person is someone with a system that protects their habits. A fluent English speaker is not someone who studied intensely once. It is someone who practiced a little every day. A disciplined person is not someone who forces themselves. It is someone who has built a system that makes discipline natural. Before this segment ends, understand this ancient but timeless truth. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. If your systems are weak, your results will be weak. If your systems are strong, your results will be strong. Micro habits are the foundation of those strong systems. They create small victories. Those victories create identity. Identity creates consistency. Consistency creates transformation. This is how you design your future. Not with motivation, not with willpower, not with big promises, but with tiny, repeatable systems that quietly reshape your life from the inside out. Segment 7. The hidden power of consistency. Why most people quit before change. Happens most people fail in self-improvement because they underestimate one thing, the delay between action and result. They expect progress to be visible instantly. They want proof after 1 week. They want transformation after 1 month. But real change does not work like that. Real change is slow at first, so slow that it almost looks like nothing is happening. And this is the exact moment where most people quit. Micro habits survive this phase because they make consistency easier. Instead of waiting for a dramatic transformation, micro habits teach you to trust the process. They help you show up even when results are invisible. They make progress feel natural, not forced. Let us understand this deeply. When you plant a seed, nothing appears on the surface for days or weeks. Underground, the roots are forming, the structure is developing, the foundation is growing, but from the outside the soil looks unchanged. If someone did not know how nature works, they might believe the seed failed. But in reality, the seed is preparing for the breakthrough. Your self-improvement works exactly the same way. In the beginning, your micro habits build invisible progress. Your focus improves 1% at a time. Your confidence grows in tiny increments. Your English becomes a little smoother every day. Your mindset becomes slightly stronger. But you cannot see these changes immediately. They occur quietly below the surface. This period is dangerous because your mind begins to whisper doubts. Is this even working? Why can't I see progress yet? Maybe I need a bigger habit. Maybe I'm not improving. These doubts destroy growth more than failure ever will. That's why consistency is the core of the micro habit revolution. Not speed, not intensity, not excitement. Consistency. Consistent action beats intense action every time. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be persistent. Micro habits protect your consistency because they remove the mental barrier that usually stops people. When the action is small, the mind cannot argue, it cannot create excuses, it cannot block you. You simply do the habit and move forward. Let us look at real examples. If you try to improve your English by studying 1 hour daily, you may quit after a few days due to pressure. But if you practice one sentence per day, you can continue for months. And after months, your fluency naturally increases. Not because you studied extremely hard, but because you never broke the chain. If you try to meditate for 20 minutes daily, your mind may resist. But if you meditate for 1 minute daily, you build the foundation of calmness. Eventually, that minute grows into 2, then 5, then 20, but only when you are ready. If you try to exercise intensely, your body may get tired or overwhelmed. But if you begin with 1 minute of movement, you can continue even on days when you feel exhausted. Micro habits are designed to make quitting difficult. They make consistency feel light. Another reason most people quit early is expectation. People expect progress to feel dramatic. They want excitement, but micro progress does not feel dramatic. It feels normal. And because it feels normal, people ignore it. When you start eating healthier, you do not instantly feel stronger. When you start reading, you do not instantly feel wiser. When you start speaking English, you do not instantly feel fluent. When you start exercising, you do not instantly feel fit. But just because progress is not loud does not mean it is not real. In 2025, the biggest enemy of self-improvement is impatience. Everyone wants fast results. Social media shows highlight reels, quick transformations, overnight success. But reality is slower. Growth is slower. Micro habits teach you to appreciate slow improvement because slow improvement is the most reliable kind. Consistency also builds confidence. Every time you complete a small habit, you prove to yourself that you can show up, that you can follow through, that you can depend on yourself. And when you begin trusting yourself, everything changes. Self-trust is the foundation of self-growth. Without self-trust, you cannot build discipline. You cannot commit to goals. You cannot push through discomfort. Micro habits rebuild your trust in yourself through small, consistent wins. Another overlooked truth is that consistency creates a compound effect. Compound effect means small results grow exponentially over time. Not linearly, but exponentially. At first it feels like nothing, then suddenly everything multiplies. Your English fluency multiplies, your confidence multiplies, your fitness multiplies, your discipline multiplies, your identity multiplies. This is why the people who stick to micro habits for months experience massive transformation later. The results appear all at once, even though the work was done slowly. Consistency turns effort into destiny. Before we close this segment, understand this final truth. The world does not belong to the fastest. The world does not belong to the strongest. The world belongs to those who do not stop. In 2025, success will not come from big intensity. Success will come from small consistency. Your micro habits are not just actions. They are promises. They are identity signals. They are steps toward a version of yourself you have not met yet. Stay consistent long enough, and your future will have no choice but to change. Segment 8. The future belongs to the one who starts small. 2025 is a turning point in how people grow, learn, and transform. The old way of self-improvement is dying. The world has been loud with big goals and big moves and big changes, but people are finally understanding that the path to a better life does not begin with something big. It begins with something small, something simple, something you can repeat every day without breaking yourself. This final segment is not just an explanation, it is an invitation to enter the new world of self-improvement, where small actions lead to big futures. Let us begin with the truth that shapes everything. Your future is not built in the future. Your future is built in the now. Today is the only place where change can begin, and micro habits make today possible. When people imagine their dream life, they imagine a version of themselves that is disciplined, confident, focused, skilled, and successful, but they forget that this version is not created overnight. That version is constructed through small actions repeated consistently, so consistently that they become part of who you are. If your habits stay the same, your identity stays the same. If your identity stays the same, your future stays the same. This is why micro habits matter. They are the smallest building blocks of identity. Every small action you take is a piece of the future you are constructing. And unlike big goals, micro habits are easy to begin and hard to abandon. Now let us talk about the modern world. The world of 2025 is full of distractions, full of noise, full of pressure, full of uncertainty. People are overwhelmed, they are anxious, they are tired, they feel behind. Their minds are racing faster than their plans. In this environment, big routines collapse. Massive goals feel impossible. Motivation is unstable. Consistency becomes a luxury. That is why micro habits are the perfect weapon for this era. They cut through the chaos. They give you small moments of control. They protect your progress. They create clarity. They force your mind to slow down and focus on what is essential. A 1-minute habit does not care about your schedule. A 1-minute habit does not care about your stress. A 1-minute habit does not care about your mood. It simply asks for your presence. And presence is where growth begins. Think of the people you admire, the disciplined, the successful, the focused. They are not superhuman. They are not naturally gifted in everything. They are consistent, and their consistency is built on habits that became systems. You can build those systems too. You do not need a perfect life. You do not need a perfect schedule. You do not need perfect motivation. You need one small action done every day. That is enough. Micro habits also protect you from the emotional trap of perfection. Many people quit because they believe that if they cannot do everything, they should do nothing. Micro habits destroy this mindset. They say, do the smallest version, but do it. And in doing so, they keep your momentum alive. Momentum is more important than motivation. Momentum is more reliable than willpower. Momentum is what carries you through doubt. Micro habits create momentum naturally. They create a chain of wins. They create proof that you can improve even in difficult seasons. They teach you the one mindset that truly guarantees success, the mindset of showing up. Small habits remove the drama from self improvement. They turn success into something calm, something simple, something repeatable. Your English will improve through small habits. Your confidence will improve through small habits. Your discipline will improve through small habits. Your health will improve through small habits. Your career will improve through small habits. Your identity will improve through small habits. Every aspect of your life is shaped by the small actions you repeat. But here is the part that matters the most. Small actions create big moments. There will come a day when you speak fluently and confidently, and you will wonder when the change happened. There will come a day when you feel disciplined and you will not remember when the struggle disappeared. There will come a day when you look at yourself and see someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. It will feel sudden, but it will not be sudden. It will be the result of every small habit you repeated when no one was watching. The result of every tiny decision that slowly rewired your identity. You are building your future right now in the smallest details of your day. Before this final segment closes, understand this truth clearly. A big life is built by small habits. A strong identity is built by small victories. A successful future is built by small efforts. A disciplined mind is built by small decisions. This is the micro habit revolution. The world is not asking you to be perfect. The world is asking you to be consistent. The world is asking you to begin small. Your habits do not need to be intense. They need to be repeatable. Your actions do not need to be impressive. They need to be consistent. Your future does not need to be planned in detail. It needs to be built one tiny habit at a time. The person you want to become is not far away. They are hidden in the small decisions you make today. Begin small, begin simple, begin now. Your future begins with one tiny step. Subscribe now. Join the Bright World English Academy family and let's start your English learning journey together.